This is your 20-minute podcast, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
And our special guest from the Great Voice Company is the great Susan Berkley. And Susan and I have been friends and co-voiceover talent for many, many years, 10 years to be exact. Welcome, Susan. Glad to have you.
Oh, David, it's great to hear your voice. I've just been hearing you and following you online, and, you are kicking butt and taking names as a voice talent. It really makes me feel great.
I appreciate that. Susan was my very first coach, very first mentor, and so we go way back, and it's just a thrill to have you here. Susan is one of the most listened to voices in the country, and you've certainly heard her voice. Could it be on AT&T or Citibank and many others? She's an author of the book Speak to Influence, How to Unlock the Hidden Power of Your Voice, which I have, which is a great book, and her latest book, The Persuasion Code, and we'll talk about that in a little while. She's president and founder of the Great Voice Company in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, and she's a worldwide trainer, speaker, you name it. She's been featured on ABC, CNBC, Howard Stern. The 20 minutes is up. There you go. What a wonderful career. And likewise, I've been following you forever, and it's just it's a treat to not only see your success continue to grow and flourish, but how many voice talent you've touched over the years that have really helped people get into this business like me. It's really quite remarkable.
I'm honored.
So give me one of your signature voices.
Welcome to City Phone Banking. Your account balance, David, is $3,000,000.47 because you're a friend of mine.
Okay, we're going to hang up now, and I'm going to go cash that account while we're while we're still here. That's terrific. That's terrific. So let's talk briefly about voiceover, because it really relates to a lot of things in life, from public speaking to sales to confidence, just all kinds of areas of our life, right?
Yeah, that's true. We are, I guess you'd say, the masters of influence, because you and I as voice talent have the ability to go into a recording studio, read somebody's script for 60 seconds and sell, thousands, if not millions of dollars, like I once did for a spot that I recorded for Topsy Tail, which is a little hair gizmo as seen on late night TV. And you might remember the commercial. It sounded like this. If you're getting bored with your hair, don't despair. Now there's an exciting new look with Topsy Tail. And that commercial sold $50 million, David.
Oh, my gosh.
Amazing. And of course, I didn't see anything near that much, because I didn't get residuals. But
right.
The point is that we as voice talent, as broadcasters, have certain, superpowers, persuasive superpowers that we probably take for granted. And what I did was I deconstructed what I and people like you and our colleagues do in the studio and on the air to be so persuasive. And that formed the basis of my first book, Speak to Influence, and now the new one, The Persuasion Code, because I'm teaching those techniques to sales organizations, to customer service groups, to any business person that wants and needs to be effective, not just in selling, but also in gaining trust. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. If people don't trust us, they're not going to buy from us. Don't you agree?
Absolutely right. It's all about relationships at the end of the day. And the way you foster those relationships is by communicating confidence, trust, integrity, all those buzzwords that are still very important to this day.
Yeah, it's true. It's never changed, and it never will change. That's the great thing about what we do. trust never goes out of style. There might be times where it's lessened,
right?
But it's always been important, and it always will be.
And the other thing that's fascinating to me over the years is social media has become more and more prevalent and more in helping us to communicate to others around the world, really, is it's like the new word of mouth. Word of mouth has always been the go-to thing, and now it's like word of mouth on steroids.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned social media, because that's why a lot of my corporate consulting clients come to me, because they're finding that they're getting low social media scores, like a 1-star review or something, because of something that someone on the front line said to a customer. They picked up the phone, the customer didn't like the tone of voice, or they didn't get the right feeling from that business because of the person on the front line. So smart companies are realizing that every single point of customer contact has to be coherent, it has to be cohesive, and it has to give the same message of trustworthiness, which is very subtle. It's not necessarily the words you use anymore. It's the tone of voice. And you know that you're in marketing.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the other part of that, I think, is there's a sense of fear along the way. And the ability to be able to face our fears, to cut through that, to help grow those relationships and stuff is sometimes pretty difficult for folks.
Well, you're talking about fear of cold call and things like that for salespeople, right?
Yeah.
So what that really is, David, it's so interesting that I've found that when we're afraid of calling somebody, we don't know that person and they don't know us, but yet we imagine that they're going to reject us. And that's a psychological, that's like Psych 101. It's called projection. Mm-hmm. But what's really going on is that we're rejecting them before they reject us. And then we're projecting it onto them. We're somebody we don't even know yet. We're imagining they're going to reject us. Well, they haven't heard our voice yet. We haven't even made the call yet. In our mind, we are doing the rejecting first. So that when I work with my sales staff, that's one of the first things that I train them on, so they really understand that the problem starts with me, not with the person on the other end.
Absolutely. And there used to be so much focus on you have to have this kind of voice, and it's really not the case. It's a matter of being able to communicate and relate.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. You know, I just read something about Clark Gable, and we all know, of course, who he was with Gone with the Wind and everything. He used to have a very high, annoying voice. And he went through voice training. He was able to like deepen his voice and do that famous, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn voice that was so famous in Gone with the Wind. And Grace Kelly as well, the great actress, also did, voice coaching to make her voice acceptable to Hollywood. Well, the problem is we don't do that anymore. People in school are not trained in elocution. They don't, you just don't get voice coaching anymore. And it's not even a value that I think that we have as a society. And I'm not saying that we need to even return to those days because I think a cow has left the barn, as they say.
Right.
It'd be an impossible thing. But what hasn't gone out of style, what we must pay attention to in business and in our personal lives is trust. Because what people don't realize is that one of the main ways you undermine trust is by the way you speak, and it's unconscious. If a shift in tone, it could be an inflection, it can be mumbling, it can be an accent or a dialect that so many people have. I mean, ours is a country, even though they're trying to block immigrants, there's still a lot of people with English is not their native language anymore. And that's fine. I mean, that is not a problem at all. It's what that does to both the speaker and the listener. People unfortunately have preconceptions based on the sound of a voice. And a lot of that is unconscious. Can I share a real quick story with you?
Please do.
So I had a conversation with a friend of mine who produces infomercials, and you know what an infomercial is, right?
Yep.
For our listeners that might not know, it's a very long commercial. Sometimes they're half an hour long or even an hour long, usually trying to sell a skincare or other, product. And this guy had an infomercial running. It was for a kitchen product, and it was pulling in millions of dollars, David. This thing was like making money hand over fist. And one day the narrator, the announcer that was recording that infomercial came to him and said, I'm really sorry, I can't do it anymore because I have a conflict with one of my other customers. But I have a friend of mine, another voice talent that sounds exactly like me. Here's his demo. The producer listened. He said, well, I'll be darned, they sound exactly alike. Puts the friend on the air. And you know that overnight sales plummeted, David. He was bleeding money. He lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the next day, it was just the voice, And the next day, in a panic, he called the original talent back. He put him back on the air, signed him to an exclusive contract, wrote him a very big check. And don't you know that the sales went right up to where they were? There was something in that voice that he couldn't hear, and he's an expert. But somehow the audience, the buyers could perceive. Voice has that ability. It almost exerts a sort of a psychic influence on people. We don't know that influence, but people feel it. They hear it. And in the work that I do, I try to help people make that conscious so that in every communication, they're instilling trust. They're not undermining their message every time they speak.
Have you ever seen the new show? It's called Ransom.
No, it's something I should watch.
Yeah, because it's people hold people for ransom, and these aren't cops. These are professional negotiators. And so long story short, that's kind of what they do. But with that said, one of their tech guys analyzes voices. And it's fascinating because they can, between the body language, but mostly the voice, they can tell whether they're being honest, dishonest, whether they're deflecting questions, whether it's just fascinating.
Wow.
And that's probably the reason I watch it, is because that technology is like,
wow.
Really?
It's so interesting you brought that up, because one of the things I tell people, I say, when you cradle, you know how sometimes people pick up the telephone and instead of wearing a headset or sitting up straight, they cradle the phone, the receiver between their shoulder and their ear. You get the image, right? Well, that is the worst thing that anybody can do, because it actually makes your voice sound muffled, like you're calling for ransom money.
Absolutely right. And the other thing I've found, and I think I learned this from you years ago, and that is, okay, I'm sitting here in my studio. I'm all by myself. I could be sitting here in my bathrobe. But the reality is, if I don't get up, get dressed, look professional, feel professional, all of that translates over the phone.
Yeah. So what you're perceiving and what we know as voice talent is that one of the key tools we use is our body language, and our whole, it's not just talking. There's a whole mental transformation we go through as voice talent to get the job done. I mean, we're visualizing, we're putting ourselves in a place, we're imagining the person we're talking to, and we're using certain body language that totally affects the sound of our voice. One kind of body language for a hard sell, another for a soft sell, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the cool things that business people, salespeople, customer service people can learn. They're like little tools to have in their toolkit to give better service and to help the company be perceived in a way that's consistent all the way across the board. Because what I found, David, is that companies invest, thousands, if not millions, in their visual branding. And this as a marketing expert, but they put very little, if they even think of it at all, into their voice branding. Because your company, just as it has a physical image, has a spoken image, and it must be consistent across the board with every single point of customer contact. Can I give you an example of when it went wrong?
Please do.
Okay, so I'm a luxury shopper. I'm a proud contributor to the U.S. economy. Consumer economy. My boyfriend says, yeah, you single-handedly brought us out of the Great Recession. So one day I did some shopping at a very exclusive Fifth Avenue store. In fact, Fifth Avenue is in their name. They shall go unmentioned. Right. But I bought a very nice piece of jewelry which broke. And I called their call center. I called to have it replaced and fixed. But the ladies in the call center was somewhere in the deep South. And they were the most, the image was just completely contradictory to this, the live shopping experience on Fifth Avenue. They sounded sloppy. They sounded unprepared. They just sounded like they didn't care. They were sweet enough and nice enough, but it was such a mismatch that I got furious. I was like, these people are never going to fix my necklace. I'll never get it back. I will never shop at that store again. It was such a flagrant mismatch of voice brand to store brand. And I'm sure I wasn't the only customer that noticed that.
Well, let's talk about your new book, The Persuasion Code, the $1 Million Voice Mastery Secrets to help you and your team gain trust, build confidence, and close more sales.
So if you're listening and you'd like a complimentary copy of the book, I'm happy to send it to you. I just want to I'll tell you about the book in a second, but I want to make sure we don't get cut off. I want to give everybody my email. It's voicepro@greatvoice.com. Just tell me that you heard me on David's podcast, and I'll be happy to send you a digital copy of the book. And I'll even send you a hard copy if you request it. But what that book is, what I've discovered, David, is there really four really core voice types. There's the enthusiasm type, there's the authority type, and there is the charm type. And there's also what I call the trust type, which is that classic avuncular kind of like, I'm really dating myself, but like Walter Cronkite used to be, the great newscaster,
right.
But so they're really, people kind of fall roughly into those categories, and then they're combination types. So what I do when I work with sales and customer service groups is I help people identify what their natural voice type is so they can enhance it. And then they can identify the voice of their sales prospects and their customers and adjust their voices accordingly. It's a lot of fun. And we also talk about the different factors that affect our trustworthiness when we speak, our credibility, our authenticity, our reliability, the sense of security we get. And they really are some basic things like our pitch, our inflection, our rate of speech, whether we mumble or not, a whole host of things that affect what I call vocal transparency. Because you know this, David, as a voice talent, it is so not about our voice, wouldn't you say? I mean,
Right.
our job is to lift the product and the customer off the page. In fact, if they're paying too much attention to the way we sound as voice talent, we're not doing our job. We have to be completely transparent. And that means being aware of vocal sticking points. Am I speaking too quickly? Is my tone something annoying or off-putting about it? So these are the kinds of things that and on and on. I mean, I have a whole list of things. Yeah, so typically what I do with a company is I'll go in, I'll give a workshop. Actually, the way the process works is I will start by doing what you said, like sort of secret shopping, or they'll provide me with a phone line where I can listen to everybody that's on the front line. And I do a report of findings to the management. And then I go in and I give a workshop. And then I will typically follow up and see how people are doing post-workshop. So some of my customers do actually monthly listening sessions where I teach them how to analyze the voices. And we sit in a conference room and we do it like the old radio days. I don't know if you were in radio like I was too. You sit with your program director and they air check you, which means they listen to your show. So we do that in a group setting, but we do it in a way that, and we can do it by video conference too, if I'm not physically there. But we do it in a way that's non-threatening. It's supportive, and they actually love it because they feel as if they are growing and developing as salespeople and customer service people. They don't get this training anywhere else, and that yet they recognize how important it is to their work. You don't get it in school, that's for sure. And it really is the difference between ho-hum and world class. One lost client, one lost claimant, one lost customer is worth thousands, if not tens of thousands to the firm, and even untold amount of money in the millions in bad reputation if that company is not given a 5-star review. If somebody calls and feels like they were slighted, they weren't talked to. I mean, today's customer won't think twice if you look at them the wrong way about, flaming you online. So it's really a new field that I'm really happy that companies are starting to pay more attention to their spoken image because it just makes such a difference in their bottom line.
Good for you. So businesses who are interested in reaching out to you for your workshop, for you to help them with their customer service frontline and their salespeople, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, I'll give you 2 ways. One is to call me, and I'm in New Jersey in Englewood Cliffs on the Eastern time zone, and our number here is 800-333-8108. That's 800-333-8108. My mind just went blank for a second. And they can also email me, David. My email address is voicepro@greatvoice.com. And that's my private email. That'll go right to me. It's the Great Voice Company. They can also go online at greatvoice.com. Now, we're really a full service production company as well, David, like you probably are as well. We will record anything that your company needs in any language, be it commercials, phone lines, web presentations. We translate them, we subtitle them. We're really a full service audio image company with the training piece attached, which is, sort of totally turnkey to really enhance your spoken image.
Absolutely right. Folks, don't hesitate to reach out to Susan, and also be sure to remember to request her new book, The Persuasion Code, when you email her it's greatvoice.com, right?
Yeah, greatvoice.com.
I went blank myself there for a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. It happens.
It's been a treat, my friend. Thank you, Susan. Continued success to you, and I'm glad we're able to be in touch over the years.
Oh, it's my pleasure, David. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You've been listening to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower and our special guest, Susan Berkley. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/your 20-minute podcast.
Until next time, don't forget to download your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast. That's audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast for your free audiobook. And thanks for listening to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower.